pulling on an NBA jersey once again. Isaiah Thomas.
He's special, as driven as anyone I know. He made a difference to everyone he was around in 10 short days in the G League. I couldn't be happier for him.
I think this is one of my favorite storylines that I've ever had the pleasure of covering on this YouTube channel, because I don't really get the opportunity to report on any feel-good stories on this channel, unfortunately. And in this case, it's a little bit different because we have reached the conclusion of the Isaiah Thomas saga, and it ends beautifully. So before we get to the content, I am currently coming from you guys from Osaka, Japan. You guys already know how I do it, man. Every time I go on vacation, I try to take a vacation, but something really cool comes out, so I have to whip out my travel equipment while I'm in this hotel, so forgive my surroundings. We're currently on a crusade to 1 million subscribers, so if you aren't subscribed, just do me a favor and check if you are, and maybe consider subscribing. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Over the past few days, we've been dominating on Prize Picks. We've been hitting an NBA, MLB, and we're on a hot streak, making a ton of money while having a lot of fun while doing it. I post my picks for free on Instagram, so you can literally just go copy my picks and just enjoy the game. And right now, Prize Picks will double your deposit match when you use my promo code TheFlightmike when you sign up. Or you can just click on the link in the description down below and sign up for Prize Picks. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Isaiah Thomas was selected with the final pick in the 2011 NBA draft. The odds of him succeeding in the NBA were already very slim to none, but from the very start of his career, there was something clearly special about Isaiah Thomas when he was on the Sacramento Kings. Now, I want you to bear in mind, there was a point in time where the Sacramento Kings drafted Isaiah Thomas, Hassan Whiteside, and DeMarcus Cousins, had them all playing together on the same team, but barely gave Hassan Whiteside any playing time, and they decided to move on from Isaiah Thomas the moment his contract was up. The Phoenix Suns would then acquire Isaiah Thomas in a sign and trade deal, but they were doing this weird thing where they had 3 point guards that were starting caliber worthy on their roster in the form of Goran Dragic, Isaiah Thomas, and Eric Bledsoe. So after being with the Phoenix Suns for a year, they decided to trade him to the Boston Celtics, and this is where everything would change for IT, because Isaiah Thomas would explode in his first season with the Boston Celtics for 22 points that year, and actually led the league in games played that season. And in his very next year, Isaiah Thomas would have his best season to date for the Boston Celtics, averaging 29 points per game, shooting 46% from the field and 38% from 3. Boston Celtic fans thought that they had their core for the future. With Isaiah Thomas and the rookie Jaylen Brown on the roster, the future was looking bright for the Boston Celtics, especially considering the fact that these two, alongside Jay Crowder and Al Horford and Marcus Smart, were capable of carrying the Boston Celtics to the 2017 Eastern Conference Finals. And this is the playoff series that completely changed everything for Isaiah Thomas. Prior to the playoffs, he found out that he had a hip injury. He decided to play through it. Before the series even began against the Chicago Bulls, he found out that his sister, China Thomas, died in a car accident. That didn't matter. He still played through it. Isaiah Thomas put together one of the most impressive playoff runs we've ever seen, including a heroic Game 2 victory against the Washington Wizards, where Isaiah Thomas scored 53 points, the second highest total in Celtics playoff history, to take a 2-0 lead versus the Washington Wizards. And then, of course, the Celtics would meet the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. And you know how the 2010s went, man. Any team that would meet LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals would automatically lose. But the Celtics came really close, taking the Cavaliers to 5 games. And at the very end of it, the Celtics were able to hold their heads high, knowing that the future was looking bright with this young team, and they had their franchise cornerstones in Jaylen Brown and Isaiah Thomas. On top of that, they had the number 1 overall pick in the 2017 NBA draft. Of course, they would trade down from number 1 overall to number 3 overall and select Jason Tatum, and we would find out what the fate of Isaiah Thomas was going to look like a few months later. In late August, the Boston Celtics would trade Isaiah Thomas along with Jay Crowder, Ante Zizic, and Brooklyn's unprotected 2018 first-round pick to the Cavaliers in exchange for Kyrie Irving. And this was perceived to be a little dirty in the sense that Isaiah Thomas was just coming off of a playoff playoff run where he played through an entire playoff series despite his sister dying in a tragic car accident, despite playing through an injured hip. And the one deceitful part about this was the fact that the Boston Celtics weren't exactly straightforward with Isaiah Thomas about the ramifications about playing on this injured hip, because this injured hip would completely sabotage his career.
The only thing that I would have against Boston, you know, everybody hated Boston for what they did to me. It's a business, I understand it. I'm not tripping on it. The only thing that I think they handled wrong was not explaining to me what the extent of my injury could be if I do play. Because nobody gave me no insight, okay, if you do play, this can happen. So at the end of the day, it was a bone bruise. Like, that's what they said. So if you're gonna tell me it's a bone bruise, I'm playing 10 times out of 10. Like, I'm gonna figure it out.
I'm gonna get through that.
So that was probably the only thing that I wish they would have done different, and I would have really sat down and really asked those questions, like, worst case scenario, what could happen?
And the tragic part about this is Isaiah Thomas would instantly become a shell of his former self. I mean, during the 2017 to 2018 season with the Cavaliers, Isaiah Thomas would come back early, play 15 games with the Cavaliers, and wouldn't even look like his old self. He was a liability defensively. He would average 15 points per game off of 36% shooting and 25% from three, and then would get traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, where he would put up similar numbers, but in my opinion, this was always Isaiah Thomas's biggest mistake. If he were to do it again, I think the best thing he could have done for himself was sit out for the entirety of that season and then hit free agency and then secure a big contract from any team, because the lasting image that these teams would have of you is what you were able to do for the Boston Celtics during that playoff run. And there wouldn't be that many questions about your hip, but once you gave a small sample size about you not being the player that you once were with this injured hip, that resulted in Isaiah Thomas getting some really disgusting contracts from that point and on. That offseason, he would sign a 1-year deal with the Denver Nuggets for a veteran minimum, barely got any playing time. The very next year, he would sign with the Washington Wizards, barely any playing time, once again for the veteran minimum. Next thing you know, teams aren't even signing IT. He would get a 10-day contract from the Pelicans before having to try out his luck in the G League. And here's where things would get a little weird. Every time Isaiah Thomas would play in the G League, he would put together these incredible performances. So in 2021, he would drop 42 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds in 42 minutes with the Grand Rapids Gold. That was enough for the Lakers to give him a 10-day contract. And then IT would hop from team to team, from the Dallas Mavericks back to the G League to the Charlotte Hornets, before being out of the NBA altogether, until deciding to announce a comeback bid. Isaiah Thomas would sign with the Salt Lake City Stars in March of 2024. Ironically, it was Danny Ainge, the former general manager of the Boston Celtics, that would sign him to the Salt Lake City Stars, and he was able to leverage this into a 10-day contract with the Phoenix Suns. Now, I said in my previous videos on this topic that Phoenix Suns fans should really temper their expectations in regards to what Isaiah Thomas can do for this franchise, because he wasn't going to come back and turn back the clock to when he was an all-star 7 years ago with the Boston Celtics. And that's exactly what we saw. In 4 games with Phoenix, Isaiah Thomas averaged 3.5 minutes per game and 1.3 points per game. So there was this huge question of what Isaiah Thomas's future was going to look like in the NBA, because he clearly wasn't getting playing time, but I don't think Isaiah Thomas was signed for playing time. I think the reason Isaiah Thomas was signed was because of his passion for the game, and so he could be a good locker room guy. I said 2 years ago in one of my older videos on the topic that Isaiah Thomas should consider going into coaching, but I think what's holding him back from going into coaching is the fact that he just loves to hoop so much, and it seems like this effort and perseverance ended up getting rewarded, because according to Shams Charania, the comeback is officially complete. The Phoenix Suns plan to sign guard Isaiah Thomas for the remainder of the season, sources tell The Athletic and The Stadium. In his 12th season, Isaiah Thomas completed 2 10 days, providing the Suns backcourt depth, strong leadership, and veteran presence in the locker room. And to be honest, given what Isaiah Thomas has gone through throughout his career, I think he very much deserves this. I would really like to see him leverage this opportunity to maybe becoming an assistant coach or working his way into coaching, because this man lost out on so much money based upon what has happened to him throughout the prime of his career. One of the biggest what ifs is, what if Isaiah Thomas didn't play on that injured hip for the Boston Celtics? Would he still be the same player, or would the fact that he is such a defensive liability would have still gotten in the way of him finding success in the NBA? I think at this age, if he could stick on a basketball team in a Udonis Haslem-like role, eventually make his way into becoming an assistant coach, and then eventually work his way into coaching, that'd be a bright future for him. But for now, I'm really happy that Isaiah Thomas has a new spot on a playoff caliber team in a locker room with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and a bunch of young players that definitely could use some guidance, as opposed to sitting at home trying to shoot his shot at various teams on Twitter in an effort to get back into the NBA. So I think this is probably going to be my final topic on this entire situation, and I'm very happy to say that everything has completely changed for Isaiah Thomas. I think if there's one takeaway we can get from this story, it's that you should never give up on your dreams and do everything that you possibly can to chase after your dreams, even if people are counting you out. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.